can view the meeting live and watch recordings of previous council meetings. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and Regulation 33, these video-audio files will be retained by Council for at least 6 months and made available for viewing live, as well as online within 5 days of the scheduled meeting. The written minutes of a meeting, once confirmed, prevail over the video-audio recording of that meeting. Welcome councillors, staff and members of the public. I declare the meeting of the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council open on this day, the 22nd of January 2019 at 5:01. Actually, I might ask. Is that all? Yeah. Oh no. The people that came in, do you want to ask a question? Sorry. No. Would you like to ask a question? No.
I'd like to.
In name, sir?
Robert Wilcox.
Robert Wilcox. Robert, if you want a chair, if you just go on one of the offices just there, grab a chair out of one of those and come back. Thank you. You're Steve, that is. Okay. Item 1.1, Acknowledgement of Country. The Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, water and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Item 1.2, Present and Apologies. All our councillors are present this evening, and a special welcome to our newly elected representative, Councillor Keith Pike.
Welcome.
Item 1.3, in attendance we have Council's General Manager Mr Metcalf and Executive Officer Ms Turvey. Declaration of interest or conflict. The Mayor requests elected members to indicate whether they have or are likely to have 1, any interest personally or via a close associated as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or 2, any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for councillors. Councillor Arnold has already declared an interest on item 7.5, so she'll leave the meeting at that time. Confirmation of minutes. Oh, sorry, does any other councillor have any conflict? I forgot to ask that question. No? Confirmation of minutes. Item 2.1, Ordinary Meeting of Council, December 11th, 2018. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Churchill.
I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held Tuesday 11th of December 2018 be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Somebody to second. Councillor Branny. Any discussion? All those in favour?
I wasn't in attendance or...
Sure.
Sorry.
So, and we'll say, sorry, I'll just...
I don't know what to put because
you can put, just to clarify, you wasn't here, but you can, if you were satisfied that we were all telling the truth, you can vote with us.
Okay.
I'm not saying you're calling us a liar if you don't, but if you're happy to do that, that's fine.
I'm happy to support that.
Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you. Item 2.2, Annual General Meeting, December the 11th, 2018. A motion, please. Councillor Arnold.
The minutes of the 2017-18 Annual General Meeting held Tuesday the 11th of December 2018 at 7 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Somebody to second that, please. Councillor Browning. Any discussion? All those in favour? It's unanimous. Item 2.3, workshop held January the 8th, 2019. The workshop notice and agenda is on the following page, and the council notes this information. Item 3, Planning Authority. Under Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2005, I hereby declare that the council is now acting as a planning authority under the provision of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for section 3 of the agenda. A motion, please.
I'll move council now acts as a planning authority.
Second, Councillor Simons. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Item 3.1 DA 18253. The item starts on page 10, recommendations on page 19 and 20. Could I have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor Woods.
I move that pursuant to Section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, that the application for residential extension ancillary dwelling and change of use DA 2018/0253 at 3 Harold Street, Coles Bay, CT 62974/02 be approved, subject to the following conditions 1 to 14.
Somebody will second that, please. Open for discussion. Councillor Churchill.
Yes, I've got a few comments to make on this one, and I just feel that it's a good example of the bad examples that we're getting of planning coming through to us, because there are a lot of discrepancies in this proposal that we are expected to make decisions on, and in several places we're being told that in this case the location is inaccurate by many metres. Whilst there is an inaccuracy with the location of 5 Harold Street and also with the shadow diagrams.
Councillor Churchill, could you just, if you've got some examples, could you just tell us what page number you're on so we can sort of keep up? Please?
Yep, sorry, they're on, those two are on page 17. And then the next one is on page 18, under shadow diagrams do not accurately show. Once again, we are told that they're not accurate. And actually, if you go then to the shadow diagrams as they are presented on page
30.
Thanks, Keith. On page 30, on this particular day, it would appear that between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m, the sun didn't change its position. We've been given 3 diagrams in this case for shadowing, and they are timed at 10 a.m. on the 21st of June, 12 noon on the 21st of June, and 2 p.m. on the 21st of June, and the 3 of those are identical. So this is clearly not appropriate material that we're being given. So I would like standards for these presentations to councillors to improve considerably so we can make better informed decisions on planning matters. Thank you.
I also have some comments. It was brought to my attention just recently that on page 17, second bottom section, the last words read, there is only one window proposed on the shared boundary, which is to a bathroom and should be made to be of transparent glass. I'm sure that that's supposed to be translucent, maybe, or opaque. Another issue that I have is in the wording, the consistency of wording with these reports that we are given. And it's not a criticism of the staff or the people who present these things. It's just a matter of consistency. If you look at page 19, condition 2 of the recommendations, the ancillary dwelling may be used for residential purposes. Any other use, for example, visitor accommodation, I think I've scribbled it out, but I think it says may or whatever. May require further planning approval. If you indulge me, if you go to page 54 and you look at a very similar condition on a different development, it states as follows, condition number 3 on page 54. The building may only be used for visitor accommodation. Any other use would require. Now, in my times, I've had to change may and would and might into must. The ancillary dwelling must be used for residential purposes, not may or could be or whatever, because we're approving this on condition that it is a residential purpose. It can't be anything else because otherwise it would be rejected. It would be not permitted. So if we could just have some consistency in the way that these things are drawn up, and I suggest that maybe condition 2 of this be altered so that it reads, the ancillary dwelling may only be used for residential purposes. Any other use, for example, visitor accommodation, will require further planning approval. Now, another thing that I'm not sure of is that actually a valid thing to say? Because I don't know whether or not, under the circumstances, you actually will require another planning permit if it's not used for residential purposes. Do you understand? Does the council understand what I'm saying? So it would be, clarity would be very handy. I think this just needs a minor change, and it would be nice to have accurate information in what we're given, because we're supposed to make decisions based on what we see, and what we see is sometimes not correct. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Browning. Brenny. General Manager, is there any issue with changing that to may only be used and will require from a planning perspective?
Not that I'm aware of, Mayor, but that would have to be endorsed by Councillor Woods and Councillor Arnold.
Yeah. But not that you're aware of from a planning perspective?
May be used for residential purposes only. Well, there's a huge difference between may and only. So, really we're imposing that it can only be used for residential purposes, whereas, I mean, what's to stop a person building something and putting it out to Airbnb? How do we ever...
It's forbidden under this zoning. That's why they had to make it for residential purposes and an ancillary building.
Yeah, but all over Tasmania there's Airbnbs that nobody knows about, and they're just being...
And that was...
Point of order, point of order,
Sorry.
conversation
Yeah.
through the mayor, please.
Through the Mayor, sorry. That was a question I was going to ask. What controls do we have in place to ensure that when we apply a condition such as this, that residences and owners don't flaunt the permit which says you can only use this for residential purposes when they may, in Coles Bay. I'm not saying this person would, and I'm not saying anybody would, but it's open to abuse. And is there controls available to council staff within the planning scheme or within state law, which ensures that the planning scheme, the state planning scheme in this case, is adhered to? And if people do abuse it, what sort of controls does council have in making sure that we can find it? I mean, in the past I've been aware that the one way we can find what's going on is look up the web and find out who's advertising that has been used. But what do we do after that? And do we do that to every development which says they're just building another dwelling in the backyard just for their residential purposes, when it's quite possible that it could be used for B&B, rental, all sorts of things?
I think, through you, Mayor, what Councillor Breeny's talking about is a statewide problem, not just an East Coast problem. And, it'll require something for the government to do something about it, because I don't know how you regulate it. And yes, if we impose that it should be strictly used as visitor accommodation and we know that it's not being used for that, we can infringe people. But again, it's a large process and you need the proof. And yes, we can go to the websites, but I was trying to find one the other day in Swansea, and to try and find out whether it's being used as an Airbnb is not that easy with the magnitude of websites that are available.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Matt.
So,
Is it,
Councillor
is
Brennan,
it,
you asked for a couple of words to be changed there, so that would have to be Deputy Mayor Woods and Councillor Arnold would need to agree with those changes and as it currently stands at the moment. Yes.
Madam Mayor, the only concern that I would have is that by putting the restrictive words on, it may, would it then make it in breach of this, the owner being able to actually apply for visitor accommodation? And they may be able to apply under the planning scheme. I know PD6 under the statewide planning scheme applies to various accommodation places, but I'm not sure about the actual wording. I don't have a problem with the ancillary dwelling may only be used for residential, but I just question whether we put a must word, if you like, in the second part. I don't actually recall what Councillor Brennan said that wording, he'd like that wording to be.
Change may to will.
So may will require. We said the thing is we don't know that it will require it.
And also, if it's any other use, I think with small home office or small home business, there's an area, a floor area that you can use in your home, a small floor area. So that would sort of take away that, so it can become a little bit more complex.
So
That's my understanding.
from
Is
my
that correct?
perspective, if I may, Madam Mayor, from my perspective, I don't have a problem with the ancillary dwelling may only be used for residential, but I'm a little concerned about turning the word may into will require planning approval, because we don't know that it will require it under the current planning scheme.
that's okay for me, Madam
What about,
Yeah, I'm fine with that one, yes.
so,
So-
change the first one to only?
Yes.
Through the
Councillor
Mayor,
Churchill.
if I can just ask Mr Metcalfe, the ancillary dwelling as opposed to the residential extension and change of use, which is what the planning report's been put up to us as, what are the differences between these two? And are we in fact passing or trying to pass two separate issues here, or is it one?
Through you, Mayor, it's my belief that anybody that owns a residential home can book out anything through Airbnb. If you want to recognise visitor accommodation, you have to go through the proper process.
Yeah, that's not really what I'm asking. I'm just asking, there's a residential extension. What is the difference between residential extension and the what was the other term?
Change of use.
Yeah, the ancillary use.
Oh, sorry.
Ancillary use.
Well, a residential extension is just a normal activity. Right. It's just a normal.
Ancillary use is
using it for visitor accommodation or booking it out, or.
Okay. So they've applied here for through the Mayor. They've applied here for residential extension, but have we as council suggested that it be ancillary use? Because that seems to be how it's coming up here. That wasn't in the original planning assessment report.
What through you, Mayor, what we're trying to be is restrictive on this application. So they've applied for a residential extension,
Yes.
and we're saying that, okay, if you're going to use it for proper visitor accommodation, you may need a planning permit to do it. A planning application. That's my understanding of the application.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, the recommendation is for both things, as I see it. It's residential extension, in brackets, ancillary dwelling. So I don't see that one or the other is being precluded here. So there's clearly a To me, there is a problem in interpreting this. I see it as we're putting it through under both.
Yeah, I think the issue here, through you, Mayor, is that it's actually an ancillary dwelling. It's not connected to the residential place. Therefore, that's why it's called ancillary. And there's a lot of those around. There's the main house, and then they'll put a little pod at the back for granny flats or accommodation. So therefore, they're an ancillary building, not part of they're not an extension to the main building.
Through you, Mayor, my understanding of ancillary building is that it can be everything except a complete unit. So in other words, if it doesn't have a kitchen, it can be an ancillary building, right? If it doesn't have, I think there are other parts of the building that if it doesn't have, it can be an ancillary building. This one has everything. So I just feel that we're not actually complying with the definitions of these two different things, but we're trying to allow both options, and I just question the validity of doing that.
I have no further comment on there, but it's I mean, I know of plenty of ancillary buildings in Swansea that actually have a kitchen in them. So,
Through you, Mayor David, when I was dealing with this sort of thing, I had to, in the case of ancillary buildings, for example, studies and studios and things like that, one of the inspection requirements was that I had to determine if the building was standalone, habitable under the building code. That is, it contained a bathroom, a bedroom, a kitchen, bathroom as in bathroom and toilet, kitchen, bedroom, living room, and that was about it. If one of those was missing, it's an ancillary building. And if they were all there, it was a separate dwelling. All of those factors are here. So has something changed in the new planning scheme?
Through you, Mayor, I can't answer that, but I mean, the whole visitor accommodation system has changed. And that's the issue. I mean, if you wanted to rent something out, you have to be accredited. And, you know, there's a whole process to go through. But now, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from renting your bottom floor or your top floor. And there's no fire separation anymore. It's just an open slather. And I know what you mean about ancillary buildings, but I see them getting dropped into places all the time, like drains in behind buildings.
Actually, for sure, answer your question on when this changed, but I know we've got a property in Moona, and I know that I rang about putting another little unit at the back of our property, so we've got a house at the front, and we were permitted to put up to a 6-square building, like a little house, a little unit complete, in the backyard, and this was probably 18 months ago, so maybe the rules now allow...
Yeah, that's what I've heard, so it's probably the case.
Yeah. Okay, any further questions? And so we got to, on point number 2, happy to change may to only? Yes. And that's the only change?
Add only after may.
Add only after May.
Yeah, may only, okay, add only after may.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, if I may, perhaps one of the things to add to Councillor Brennan and Councillor Churchill's concerns is that perhaps our planning staff might need to look at the language that they're using and refer to the Acts Interpretation Act, where there's certain meanings around the word must, is to and may, and so it might be that language that's actually in the Acts Interpretation Act could be applied in some of our planning conditions. It just might make it a little bit clearer and a bit more, give councillors a little bit more confidence around what has to be done in there, and then it would then also, I think, give confidence in terms of compliance, so that if we saw that there had been a breach of any of the planning recommendations or any of the planning conditions, if those very specific words were there, it probably gives us greater weight, if you like, to compliance.
Yeah, and I think it's been made a little bit harder this evening too without a planner
Yes,
being
absolutely.
here to answer some of these questions.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to go for the vote? All those in favour? Councillor Simons, Pike, Browning, Arnold, Breeny, Deputy Mayor Woods, myself, and against, Councillor Churchill. Carried. Okay, moving on to item 3.2. In respect to mediation, the item starts on page 52, recommendations found on page 54 to 56. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Arnold.
That pursuant to section 17 of the Resource Management and Planning Appeal Tribunal Act 1993, Council agrees to a consent memorandum being endorsed by Council staff that has the effect of approving DA 2018/233, subject to the amended drawings for a single visitor accommodation unit only, as shown in plans attached to this report, and subject to the conditions that are generally consistent with those in the agenda, 1 to 22.
And can we second that motion, please? Councillor Churchill. Open for discussion. Councillor Breeny.
As I recall, this mediation was required due to my very first poor attempt at changing a motion. And you can read the poor attempt on page 52. They boxed it and made it into bold and everything. But the intent of my motion to refuse was because of concerns that were listed here. And I must commend the Planning Department for reaching this mediation, which probably, although painful for them, it has achieved my intent, and I'm very pleased with that. There's a couple of questions that I'd just like to ask, and again, it would be really good to have the planner who was responsible for the mediation. I don't know whether it would have been a council planner, but it would be good to have that person here, first of all to thank them, but also to ask them a question. In relation to the amended drawings, it states the amended drawings now, this is on page 52, now propose one visitor accommodation unit rather than two, which resolves the issue of the large area that was outside of the standard planning scheme requirements. And it's located towards the rear of the lot as viewed from the street on the original drawings, etc., etc. But then the planning scheme has a 15-metre setback to the foreshore boundary. This was one of the issues, I think, that was in relation to the reasons for refusal, the fourth dot point. The dwelling proper is set back more than 15 metres from the foreshore boundary, that is the actual building walls itself. A low-level deck and screen wall are the only elements of the amended drawings that are within the 15-metre setback. The 13-metre setback, which is what this is now, is considered appropriate. If you draw a line from the closest point of the two adjoining dwellings, the proposed dwelling sits behind this, as shown below. There's a red line on the plan on page 53. My question to the planner, if the planner had been here, would be, was this requirement to allow a concession of 2 metres, that is to be encroaching 2 metres into the 15-metre standard setback, was that a critical issue in relation to this mediation? Because if it wasn't, why isn't it 15 metres? If it was, then I'm inclined to accept the 13 metre setback, if that's what the properties next door sort of refer to, only on the condition that the rest of the mediation relied on that 13 metre setback. Not having the planner here to answer the question is frustrating, but I understand that we can't always do that. I'm inclined to accept this, but I would like to flag to Council the fact that allowing for less offset than is standard is continually eating into what we're supposed to be using as a discrete approval. Discretion is, based on the word discrete. It's small, it's insignificant, etc., etc. In cases where they keep encroaching, that discretion is being eroded. And if we don't start saying no, it has to be 15, and we don't keep that up and keep developers aware in this municipality that 15 metres from the foreshore reserve is a reasonable offset, then we're going to end up having to come back here all the time and saying, what's wrong with 8 metres, which is what they had before? What's wrong with 10? It's 5. And then suddenly we're on it. If the planning department could be aware that at least myself would like to see a 15 metre setback where it's supposed to be 15 metres, and if the planner could explain to me why we just allowed 13 in this case, I don't know why. There's plenty of room for them to move up the block. It's not as if they're bumping up against another unit. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. General Manager, do you know the answer to that for the 13 metres?
Through you, Mayor, no I don't. I would imagine that they would have taken that into account in the mediation though, because it's a critical component of what happened. Unfortunately, I don't have the original DA in front of me, which would say why they, recommended acceptance of the 10 metres, whatever it was. So I'm not sure if it's views or alignment of other houses but don't know.
Okay.
And I don't have the other report. I was hoping to have it in the minutes, but I don't. So.
Further questions? No. Councillor Browning.
Through the Mayor, I'd just like to completely agree with what Councillor Breeny said. And I guess because I'm new, I don't really understand it, so I'm hoping that this planning workshop that we're going to in February might be able to shed some light on it, but I find it very difficult when the legislation says one thing and we're allowing something different. That's what I say.
So I'll put the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Simons, Pike, Churchill, Arnold, Breeny, Deputy Mayor Woods and myself, and against Councillor Browning. Carried. Item 3.3, zoning of part of Harvey's Farm Road, Bicheno. Item starts on page 62 and the recommendations on page 64. Could I have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor Woods.
The council receives a report ahead of a further report in due course to consider a planning scheme amendment prepared by council's officers in consultation with affected owners and the Tasmanian Planning Commission.
Somebody to second that motion? Councillor Simons. Open for discussion. Councillor Churchill.
Through you, Mayor, to Mr Metcalfe, I just can't quite understand why this one has been brought to us at council at this point in time. Is there a reason for that when really it's been brought here to be deferred and not given in any amount of detail once again? I mean, we can't even tell what lots are referred to. We can get no detail really from any of this so-called report. So I'd really like to know why this has in fact been brought to council at this point in time.
Through you, Mayor, just reading the report, it's just for councillors' information to say that this is coming, and it addresses an anonymity, get the word out, yep, in the planning scheme. So,
Madam
identified.
Mayor, if I may, my initial thought is that, as the General Manager said, it is for information, but I suspect it's the start, or it's the way of starting a process, a planning scheme process. So we know that it's going to happen.
Because I'm just a bit confused that it says that council receives the report ahead of a further report. Is the report this report?
Yes,
This 2
that's right.
pages is the report?
Yeah, that's what I'm reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's a, if I may, there's a very strict process under the new separate planning scheme, and under our interim planning scheme, for the changing of zones. So,
Any further comment, question? No. Councillor Churchill.
Just that if it's going to come through in any format, let's get the detail right from the start. Lot numbers should be included. Pretty simple, pretty basic. They should be included when we first receive this report. Otherwise, this report is, in fact, in my view, a nonsense.
Councillor Churchill, it does say there's 6 lots with the addresses 11, 17, 17A, 19 and 23.
Correct, but it doesn't, on the actual
On here.
plans,
Okay.
show you which lots they are. They could be any lots at all. It then refers to a couple of lots specifically, and we don't know which lots they are.
Sure. Bit more information, yeah. Any further comment or question? Okay, so I'll, all those in favour? That's carried unanimous.
Could I ask you if you could ask Councillor Arnold to speak up a little bit, because we just sort of can't hear. That's sort of, I just can't hear on this side of the table, Cheryl.
Okay.
Thank you.
The Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2005, I hereby declare that the Council is no longer now acting as a planning authority under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for Section 3 of the agenda. A motion, please.
Move that council no longer acts as a planning authority.
Second. Councillor Arnold, all those in favour? Unanimous. That's at 5:38. Thank you. Public question time. Mr. Murray, do we have a microphone, Ms. Turvey?
Pardon me.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to begin, if I may, by congratulating the Council on the excellent job that's been done on the Wallangata Road, at least as far as Sandspit. My assumption is that the Council responsibility ends shortly after Sandspit, and it's possibly then Sorell that has responsibility for the road after that. Would the Council be happy to take whatever steps are possible to exert a little pressure on Sorell to stand up to the mark on this front?
Thank you, Mr. Murray. I'd like to thank you for that question. You would be very aware of this matter, Mr. General Manager?
Yes, through you, Mayor, we've been trying that for 2 years. So that's quite substantial pressure.
I might have a couple of suggestions that I could tell you privately.
I have mentioned it to ministers, requesting they ask the question of Sorell also. So we are applying some pressure. I think they're applying equal pressure not to do it. So, and at the end of the day, it is their choice. So, we will keep trying, Mr. Murray.
Thank you. My second question, if I may, also congratulates the council, uncharacteristically for me, I guess, on what I believe has been an excellent job with fencing the bird reserve on the Prosser River. I think that's been done very sensitively. A number of other people feel the same way about it, I believe. I do understand, however, that there was criminal damage occasioned to that fence round about Christmas time. My question is whether this damage has been reported to the police and whether they've been asked to investigate.
Yeah, the matter has been reported to police. Police were made aware of it and requested to keep an eye on it, particularly over the Christmas period. So that's up to the police how far they, take that matter, but it has been reported. Penny Davidson. Mrs. Davidson. Thank you. Wayne?
Thank you. I'd like to segue into that fencing thing. I've noticed the proliferation of paling fences throughout Alford and Tribana particularly, and in a lot of the new areas of these very unattractive tall paling fences on the roadsides, which really doesn't beautify the place at all. They look like prisons. I'm wondering if they have to have planning permission to put those up, and it's necessary. And can council recommend more attractive alternatives to people, so that they can actually do something different? Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. I too have noticed some very tall paling fences going up along the front of properties recently, not just in Tribana. And there are requirements, because it was just recently that I looked at putting a fence up at the front of my property here at Tribana, and there are certainly requirements under the planning scheme on heights. I think it's only like 1.5 metres of solid, and then you need to go to something that's open at the top. So there are certain rules. I'm not sure if they've changed in recent times, but not to my knowledge. I'm not sure if we probably could have some attractive fencing options, couldn't we? How much people will take notice of them, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, through you, Mayor, you could actually build a fence to 2 metres. The 1.5 metres and all that comes into place where you're actually coming out onto the road and you need vision. So I think it might even be 3 metres you can build a fence height, as long as you don't impair the vision of getting out of driveways and things like that. So, and it's really personal choice, isn't it? Whether it's timber or treated pine or picket or, I mean,
even if it was spaced paling fences rather than solid paling, it would probably look a little better. But it's there's just a huge amount of it going up everywhere.
There is indeed, yes.
I think so.
But
Thank you.
no controls, unfortunately.
Okay.
I will double check that, Penny, just from the information I got. I'll just double check that. I'm not saying the general manager's wrong, but I'll double check that. Thank you. Next is Shirley Castle. Pass the parcel.
Thank you. Can you provide me with an update on my previous question, re the Buckland Church and Cemetery?
Sure, Shirley. So since that question was asked, I've been and had some meetings with some people in Buckland, had some conversations with some local people who have interest in the Buckland Church, a gentleman from Swansea also. Council at its workshop today had a discussion on the matter. Councillor Arnold and Councillor Pike are going to work together with community to see, so we're calling it a special project, and we're allocating council laws to these special projects to utilise their skills and experience to come up with some solutions and bring them back to council. So you could work with Councillor Pike and Councillor Arnold, and they'll come back to work with community, come back to council with some ideas and some thoughts and some costings and so forth, and we can move forward from there.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Great. Next person is Paul Carswell.
Hello everyone.
Hi, Paul.
I recently sent out an email to all councillors, the Deputy Mayor, regarding a couple of these questions that I have tonight. And unfortunately it didn't make the agenda. I'm aware now of what I have to do to get the questions that I have on the agenda. I'm hoping that the council got to read my letter or my email. Did the council get to have a read of my letter? Dated on the 11th of January.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I didn't. I wasn't a councillor then.
You won on Monday.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. My question is the council aware that the aircraft landing area on the Cambria property is governed by the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council? And part of that responsibility is having the authority to set limitations to the usage of the airstrip. And this is the reference from the CASA, Civil Aviation Safety Authority. Question 1.
Oh, well, clearly, that's your question to me now.
It's a question to council.
Yeah, no, well, clearly, Paul, I can't answer that. I'm
Sure.
not an expert in that field, never have proclaimed to be. That question's going to have to be answered by those people with the suitable skills. We can't answer those off the,
Yeah, sure.
here.
And I appreciate that.
Inappropriate, yeah, to do
I
so.
appreciate that, Mayor Wisby.
Yeah.
And I invite the council to explore that question in detail.
Yeah, for sure. So we was just debating, was that sent, I know we got it, the council got it, was that sent to the General Manager direct to the General Manager? Apparently not.
I've sent similar
That's okay.
questions
Yeah,
to the
so
General Manager.
I'll forward it to the General Manager and he'll provide an answer to that particular letter. When I saw it, I actually thought it had gone to the General Manager, but clearly not. We was just working that out. So that's where I need to send it because it's outside of my knowledge level.
Sure.
And, yeah, we can come back to you pretty quick on an answer on that one.
That'd be great.
And we all want to know the answer to that, Paul, okay?
That'd be lovely if you could explore that, and I invite you to explore that. Second question, I'm seeking clarification regarding the current acceptable use of the Cambria Green airstrip. Sorry, the Cambria airstrip. And the existing use rights of this aircraft landing area within the current Glamorgan Spring Bay interim planning scheme. I further understand that under the current planning scheme approval for the use of the aircraft landing area is only in connection with agricultural pursuits and emergency services. And I invite the council to explore that question also.
Sure.
And I'm happy to give you those questions to make it easy.
Thank you. The answers will be put in for the next, it'll come out, with the minutes. If it's available early, we can send it to you earlier, but it'll definitely be placed in the minutes for this meeting.
Thank you.
Public record, I mean, yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, I can't answer any more at this very moment.
Can I, Mayor, through you, comment on that comment about the answer to the question being published in the minutes?
Sure, quickly you can, yes.
That's because... Thank you.
Oh, that's your Brett. So you can, Brett, because you're number 5.
Thank you very much. Wait for the last. The issues that Paul has raised about the use of the airstrip on Cambria property has been raised by a number of residents in the area because we have noticed an increased use of the airstrip, either for charter flights by Par Avion or for pilot training because Par Avion have a contract with China Airways. This airstrip, or the aircraft landing area, as it's known by CASA, adjoins a residential area. Now, it's less than 100 metres from houses. We had the experience on Sunday afternoon of 3 touch and goes, one of which was aborted, and then a very low flyover the residential area. a number of us have, for a number of months, been attempting to get clarification from Council through the Office of the General Manager as to what controls are there in place, or what restrictions are there in relation to the use of the aircraft landing area. And I'm concerned that the answers that have been received to date haven't been adequate. I would ask Council, rather than including an answer in the minutes of this meeting, perhaps to bring the matter back to the next Council meeting so that it can be properly considered. Because I think there's quite a bit of work to be done to establish what are the Council responsibilities in relation to the ALA, and likewise what effects are there under the interim planning scheme as to what use the aircraft landing area can be used for. It's been suggested that the Cambria airstrip is similar to the airstrip on Maria Island and Bruny Island, which are both used for pilot training. Those airstrips are actually public property. Kingborough Council owns the Bruny Island airstrip. The state government owns the airstrip on Maria Island. The airstrip on Cambria is private property, and apparently can be used by anybody, according to what Mr Metcalfe has responded in the past, with the use of the land manager. Who the land manager is, I don't know. That's never been spelled out. But a number of us would like a proper and thorough investigation of the use of the airstrip and what it can be used for and what control Council has over that use.
Sure. What I'll do, Mr Harrison, I'll look at the answer that's given and I'll make sure I understand the answer and make sure that I'm satisfied myself with the answer, you know, and then hopefully you will be also, because, you know, if I can understand it and I can accept it, then hopefully, you know, the information we provide to you is adequate. So that's what I'll do. Okay, that's all I can do. We can get the information, we can look at it, make sure it's understandable and thorough enough, and if it's not, we can ask for more information. That's all I can do. I think that's what... Councillor Brennan, can you think of anything else we could possibly do other than get the information and actually have a really good look at it?
Yeah, this is a vexing issue. It's an issue that's going to be brought up with the Tasmanian Planning Commission for sure.
I appreciate the TPC may well deal with issues with the SAP. We're talking about the circumstances that we confront today.
Yeah, I understand
with the
that.
land ownership, etc.
Yeah.
I understand.
All right, we're on to it. We'll come back to you.
In the answer that is published, could there be some supporting authority quoted in terms of what research has actually been undertaken, rather than just an answer?
Yep, I would think so.
Hope so?
Yep, I would think so. I can't see any reason why not. Yep, okey-doke, thank you. And Robert. Robert Wilcox, that's where you are, Robert.
Questions without notice, though. Can that go ahead now?
Yeah.
Okay. I live in Orford in Walpole Street.
Mm-hmm.
My questions all relate to the river mouth of the Prosser and the final work that appears to have been finished by Gradco. The southern bank of that river mouth or extension out into the bay, I wonder, has council signed off on that yet? Has that been finally approved?
Through you, Mayor, we don't approve it. It's actually a MAST job. We don't get the assignment of the asset, if you call it an asset, to it's all finished and signed off by MAST. And then there's a maintenance period as well before we get it.
Okay. Why I'm asking is that I don't know how many of you guys have actually, councillors, have actually gone out to have a look at that particular terms to call it construction are pretty lax, I think. It is the most amateurish effort of an embankment or a wall, a training wall, that you'd ever see. It really needs to be looked at, and why wasn't it done properly in stone? Why did it ever get passed with sandbags that don't do the job? They undermine. It is the most pathetic effort of retaining walls. You've only got to travel around other states of Australia. I've been right round Australia to look at retaining walls. They're made out of stone or cement. They're made permanent. This is a terrible effort to put down, and there's no practical way of developing that for future tourism purposes. I would truly like to see the esplanade at Orford continued around the river mouth, right around to the end of that beach area and out onto it, with a driveway that people could drive out, park there, and then explore the area and bring some sort of beauty to the river mouth, and people just can't get there. It's a pretty sad effort.
Thanks, Mr. Wilcox. There's not much I can really say to it, unfortunately. Mars do the final sign-off on that the works are complete. When they do that, I'm not sure if that's been done yet, but as Mr Metcalfe said, after a maintenance period, it is handed to council. That's where it is at the moment. I understand your concerns and your viewpoint, though.
It's not only my viewpoint. Everyone I speak to in the Orford area, and I ask them, have you seen the wall? Have you gone out and had a look at it? And those that have seen it, and very few of them, they're of the same opinion as me. It is an absolute embarrassment that we should desecrate a beautiful river mouth like that. And looking at the original plannings that were on the council website from the PDF from 2015 to what we have today, totally different. It really, if council has to sign off after mast sign off, they want to be questioning why. How could they accept it the way it is?
Okay. Thanks, Mr Wilcox. That concludes public question time. Information reports 5.1 starts on page 67 through to 98. Any questions, comment? I have a question. I just want to see Lou with the view. Do we have an update on?
Yes, we do. The actual, if you drive up there
Tomorrow?
As you're driving up there tomorrow, you'll see the turpentine poles ready to be installed.
So maybe
We've got to
by
have
the
the
end
foundation first, so that's
Okay.
the foundation.
So maybe end of March or?
Well, it's being fabricated, so it's not a long construct. Once the poles are up, it sits on top of it. So,
Rightio.
yep, probably by the end of March, I reckon.
Deputy Mayor Wood.
Thank you. On page 93, with the Manager of Building and Marine Infrastructure, Mr Adrian O'Leary, I have a question with regards to Bicheno and Coles Bay boat ramp. Says during the busy Christmas period, both these boat ramps sustained damage to the access jetties and pontoons. Do we know what that damage was and how it was caused?
Through you, Mayor, no, I don't. If it was a major issue, I would know about it. So I think it's just like cracked buffers and things like that.
Okay. And I did have another question on page 84, but being that the Manager of Development and Compliance, Mr Wells, is not here, there's no point in asking. Thank you.
Councillor Churchill?
Just a small one. On the list of works, page 78, and, yeah, sorry, 76, 77, 78. Just when, on this reporting here, I guess for, in the public's interest, when these items are listed as complete, is it possible then to get the amount of money actually spent? I know the reasons for not putting them in before they're completed, I understand all that, but once they're complete, is it possible to get the amount of money that was actually spent on the works put into there along with the budget estimates, so we know how things are tracking in terms of what was actually estimated for the job and actually what it did cost, to give us some real information about that stuff for the public.
Through you, Mayor, I don't have an issue with that, but during the last council's term, we would put complete, but then there would be still dollars to come in, and then there's questions raised about how did it go from 2,000 when it was complete to 3,000. Right. So it's yeah, I'm happy to put it there, but just be aware that it can change from month to month, depending on what accounts come in.
That's fine, as long as we can see
certainly do that. Yes.
What's going on. That would be good. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? No? That wasn't you, didn't you? Not you. No. Okay, so... I think we just received it. Okay, so the management reports are received and noted. Section 24 committees on page 99, item 6.1, NRM committee meeting minutes.
Madam Mayor, I move that Council receives and notes the minutes of any Section 24 committees.
Was that of just that one? Of the NRM?
That's generally how we deal with all of them.
Yeah, sorry, did you say of all or did you say of the NRM?
All of them.
Of all. 6.1, 2, 3 and...
Yes, because
4.
Council can't make any changes to the minutes because they are the minutes of the committees, so and we can only receive and note them, so that's my motion.
Oh, yeah, so they do all come under one there, sorry. Excellent. Okay. Okay, do we need a seconder to receive? Okay. Deputy Mayor Wood. Wood. Do we have any comment on the minutes at all?
Mayor, does...
No, these aren't, well, that's not quite right. Response to Spring Bay, you said, sorry, just can just go back one step. 6.1, 2, 3 and 4. 6.3 is response to the Elder Care Energy Audit request. That's not a Section 24 committee minute.
I think it was part of it. It for want of a better term, fell out of Section 24 minutes of a previous meeting. So it's probably why it's underneath the Section 24 minutes.
Yeah, so there could be questions here, because I know I've got a question here, and the response to the Spring Bay Elder Care Unit Energy Audit request isn't, it fell out of minutes, but it's not minutes, it's a request for a report to be workshopped.
You can change the motion.
Oh, I don't mind, I'm just saying I want to talk to this one.
Well, we could change the motion so that it covers it, and we can do that, if the Deputy Mayor is happy to do that, that we receive and note the minutes and reports of the Section 24 committees.
Mayor, all two separate motions, or you can include it in that one motion, yeah. Those reports have come out of the minutes. They're questions out of the minutes.
So one
Council minutes.
Yes.
That's what I mean. So they are.
What you have is a motion that accepts all the minutes, which is the first two items.
Yep.
Yes.
And then you can deal with 6.3 and 6.4.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't deal with all of them. No.
But Councillor Arnold's motion says the minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so it covers it off there.
Yeah. But then she went on to say 1, 2, 3, 4, but
Yeah,
that's where the
I'm sorry
confusion.
about
No,
that.
that's okay.
Sorry to confuse you.
That's okay. Okay, let's go back one step. So, You're
Use big words, Madam Mayor.
5 letters, thank you. 6.1, 6.2, they've been moved and seconded. Any question derived from those two? No. Do you?
I'm waiting to vote.
Okay, so all those in favour? Against? Carried unanimous. Okay, 6.3 is the response to Spring Bay Elder Care Unit energy audit request. So that would be that council, I assume, receives, would that be right? That council receives and notes the report, I would assume. So do we have somebody to move a motion along those lines? Yes, Deputy Mayor, sorry, Councillor Arnold.
Old habits die hard, Madam Mayor.
And somebody to second? Councillor Browning? Okay, open for discussion. I've got a question. Mr. General Manager, have the new split air conditioning units been installed at the elder care units?
Through you, Mayor, I've got no idea.
The reason I ask that question, there's a paragraph there that refers to the heating units currently installed were thoroughly researched by Tony Brown. And so I don't know if they've actually been installed. You know what I mean?
Through you, Mayor, the heaters that are in there are those, they're only heaters.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not aware of any air conditioning units going in there at this stage.
So we've passed a motion, the previous council passed a motion for the heaters to go in, and then there was another motion passed that the rent would go up to cover the cost of those heaters over time. So in reading this, and this was last year, in reading this report, it appears those heaters haven't gone in, and then it refers to these heaters are wired in to take advantage of the lower tariff. So what I'd like to ensure are the heaters, as passed by council, actually are installed.
Through you, Mayor, you're talking about air conditioners.
Yes.
Reverse cycle.
Yep. Because it doesn't appear they have been
No, I
installed,
don't
and it
believe they
doesn't
have.
look like they intend to install them, but it was a direction of council to do that. And that's...
If I may, Madam Mayor, I think the issue is how to install them, because some of those units are actually conjoined units, and there's an issue around how to install them. So, yeah, separation and things like that. So that may be something that's still being investigated.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it doesn't appear from this report that they look like investigating it, but I've got air conditioning units at home, and there's a way of putting them along the wall and running conduit along, and it's not that hard. So I think it's more the wheel to do than...
No, I wouldn't agree with that. I think the will is there to do it. It's just there's something to do with the firewalls between the couple of the units that are there are fine, but there's a couple that are conjoined and they have firewalls between them, and it's the optimal place to place the air conditioner. So they were doing some investigation around that.
So, yeah, I'd just like to make sure, Mr General Manager, that those heaters are being looked at. And also that, like, the reason why I would have liked this to be workshopped as per the motion of council is so we could have talked this stuff through with the people that, you know, are looking at the matter. So that's why I didn't want to report to council. I wanted it to be workshopped. So, yeah, that's... I don't like this.
Mr. Pike wants you.
Yes, Mr. Pike.
Yes, just
Councillor Pike.
with this report on 6.3, it is a little confusing. You're absolutely right, because if you go down to paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it says after the heating units currently installed were thoroughly researched by local electrician and elder care committee member Tony Brown, who chose the most economical heater suitable for installation in the position of the previous ones. So now we're talking about a third lot. That's what I'm saying. This is very confusing.
Yeah.
Because we've got the previous lot, or are they the ones that are there now?
Yeah, don't know.
No,
Yeah,
don't know.
okay.
Can't answer
All
that.
right.
So
That's what I just wanted to clarify.
I'm sure he'll come back and give us all
Yep.
those answers.
Fine. Thank you.
Any further comment? No. All those in favour of receiving the report? Carried unanimous. 6.4, can I have a motion to receive, please? Sorry? Councillor Arnold?
So for the recreation ground?
Yes. Yes. Yes, and Councillor Churchill, comment? No.
Thank you for organising those figures for us. I think it's going to be important for decisions to be made in the future.
Sure. And I have a question in respect to this. So, Mr. General Manager, we don't actually give any money now, do we, to the Tribunna Football Club, because we council actually undertake the works now, and for some years we haven't actually.
Through you, Mayor, it's still my belief that they get the same as Swansea every year because they pay the electricity, the water, the irrigation,
Okay.
the maintenance of the grass to the, well, it used to be to the SFL standard. I'm not sure they're members of the SFL anymore.
No, far from it.
Yeah.
That's when I was young. Oh,
No.
that was a while back.
It's been in my time.
Oh,
so-
okay. Well, maybe we can I'll ask some more questions in a workshop on this. Nothing serious.
They were called the East Coast Bombers, remember?
They were, yes. That wasn't that long ago.
Excuse me, Mayor, could you clarify what you were just saying then? We don't give them any more money?
Well, going back in time, there used to be money allocated because they used to do a lot of the, like, pay the power and those sort of costs. So it was sort of like the maintenance cost also, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they did a lot of voluntary hours and basically we assisted with some funds.
Okay. Right.
So it wasn't for paying players or anything like that. It was just your, utilities costs and so forth.
So these costs are?
Well, that's what we might talk about in a workshop.
Okay.
What the break... It's not questionable. It's just like so we
No,
understand
no,
what the
it's just,
breakdown is, because the management of the facilities changed somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, so I'll put the motion to receive the report. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Okay, officers' report requiring decision 7.1, appointment of an acting general manager. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Arnold.
Madam Mayor, I'd move that any future appointment of an acting general manager shall be undertaken in accordance with section 61B(2) of the Local Government Act 1993.
Would someone second that motion? Councillor Churchill.
Madam Mayor, may I speak to the motion?
Yes, would you like to hand the motion to...
Oh, I haven't actually got it typed.
Would you like to say it again
read
slower?
it again? Certainly. That any future appointment of an acting general manager shall be undertaken in accordance with section 61B or S.61 capital B 2 in brackets of the Local Government Act 1993. The Local Government Act 1993. And number 1 goes as well. I believe Councillor Churchill seconded the motion.
Yeah, is that undertaken in accordance with?
Undertaken.
In accordance with?
section 61B 2.
Yeah, and Councillor Churchill did second?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and you may speak.
Thank you. This motion should not be construed in any way as council not having confidence in either the manager development and compliance or the manager works to undertake the role. Both the current incumbents in those roles are more than capable of undertaking the role of acting general manager for short periods of time, as indeed are other members of our managerial team. It is likely that in the event the General Manager was absent for, say, less than 10 working days, then Council could initiate the appointment of one of them to the role of Acting General Manager, if they were available. However, should the General Manager be absent for an extended period, then it may be prudent for the appointment of an external Acting General Manager. Both the Manager Development and Compliance and the Manager Works have exceptionally demanding roles within Council. If either of the managers in question were to undertake the role for an extended period, then it would not be unreasonable for their role to be undertaken by a staff member in an acting capacity, to allow them to focus on taking overall responsibility for Council. However, given the limited staff resources we have in some departments, it is unlikely that there would be a staff member available to undertake that acting departmental manager role. So to have an expectation that either would undertake the acting general manager role combined with their current role for an extended period is not acceptable. To that end, the appointment of an external acting general manager during an extended period of absence by the general manager could be the best course of action. With the well-regarded and robust processes and procedures put in place by our current general manager to protect Council in its administrative and financial operation, the integration of an equally well-qualified external acting general manager into the organisation for an extended period should be a smooth one. It should be a sound decision welcomed by the staff, as offering the surety of someone taking over the sole overall responsibility for the general manager's role and being able to focus on that without the distraction of an equally demanding role. This motion provides Council with the opportunity to make an informed decision in relation to the acting general manager role. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comment?
Madam Mayor, just through you to Councillor Arnold, an extended period, what would we consider an extended period?
I don't know. That would be a decision of Council. As I said in the early part, if the General Manager was away for, say, less than 10 working days or 3 weeks or whatever, it would be a decision of Council.
And through you again, Mayor, and perhaps someone else can answer, how would we make that decision? How would you suggest we do that?
If I may, Madam Mayor. Under Section 61B, the Mayor is the person that can actually make that decision. However, we are fortunate in that we have a Mayor who is consultative with her Council. So I believe that it would be a whole of Council decision made by the Mayor.
Councillor Bruni.
Can I also speak to that, Mike? Section 60...
1B2.
61B4 actually allows for Council to appoint a person to act in the office of General Manager during absence of the General Manager as well, which means that there is a fallback situation where Council is able to do that. If Council feel that they should be involved in that, then they have the right to do that under Section 61B4. So that option is open. It's not as if this would be handing the responsibility over to an individual, and that wouldn't necessarily be a brilliant idea, especially depending on how you looked at individuals. But as a councillor, I'm quite happy to apply by this regulation in the Act, which obviously is there for this very purpose. Thank you.
Any further comment? Okay, I'll put the vote. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Next item, 7.2, road naming in Swanwick. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Churchill.
I'll move that Council approves the naming of the road reserve Kunzia Circuit part two of that motion is that the nomenclature board and all other relevant authorities be advised of council's decision and council's records updated.
Is somebody to second that motion?
K-U-N-Z-E-A.
Kunzea. K-U-N-Z-E-A. Kunzea. Councillor Browning.
No,
Second?
just- yeah.
Circuit.
Circuit. Okay. Kunzea Circuit.
K-U-N-Z-E-A.
So that was Councillor Browning.
It's a plan.
Planned, thank you. Not yet. We haven't got a second yet.
Oh, yeah, Councillor Browning.
Oh, right.
Okay, open for discussion.
If you'd like me to just speak to the motion, I believe that other names that have been put up have been probably already shown to be not in keeping with the appropriate rules, because there are rules put in place by the nomenclature board that we have to abide by. While it seems a little bit draconian to have to impose a name, we've still got to work within these rules and to move things along in a sensible fashion. I think this is the sort of motion that we need to follow. Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment too. I think it's an opportunity for the council to put forward names of meaning in places, whether it's about a creek or a hill or a bird or a plant that's like native to the area. So I think it's a really good opportunity for council to come up with names that actually have local meaning. I couldn't find any. I didn't receive anything that supported Alexander Way, as in it's not the Alexander plant or the Alexander Hill. You know what I mean? There's nothing of significance in that respect. There was another name that was suggested by a local person, which was Manuka, which is a local plant. I won't try to use a scientific name, but it's a local plant or a small shrub tree. But there's 17 places in Tasmania with that name. Alexander, there's 19 places in Tasmania with that name. But Kunzea, K-U-N-Z-E-A, there's only one of those in Tasmania, and that's at Taroona, and that's Kunzea Road. That's a bush that grows locally up there and is actually flowering at the moment. So I actually support Kunzea because I think it gives it some local meaning. Any further comment?
Madam Mayor, would we normally make comment or change developers' suggestions for roads? Is this a common council issue? Or?
Yeah, it's clearly a council decision. It's within our town boundary. It's our choice. We are the council.
Mm-hmm.
The General Manager did send out a sheet, and I think there was about 15 streets that were named in the last 13 years, I think. So there's like one a year, which is not a lot. I think within that block too, there was quite a few streets out at Spring Beach, Shelley Beach, that were named in one lot. So it'd be less than one a year on average that's named. The rules are clear. The rules are here. They're in print. And it's our choice. So really, what's happened in the past is relevant when the rules are here and it's our choice and it's within our town boundary. So there wasn't anything supporting Alexander as a place of meaning or a name of meaning. It wasn't an early settler. We couldn't provide the list that's required to be provided that supports that name. So it's up to council. It's our decision.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, again, is that are names regularly overturned in this manner?
They're not overturned. It's a suggestion to council.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's a recommendation.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
And to follow that, are they often overturned, or are they usually?
I don't know. Well, I haven't been sitting here for the last 17 years, but I don't see it's relevant. It's council's decision. So, as I said, Alexander, I asked for information that backed that up to make it fit the rules. I got nothing. So it's not that I don't like the name Alexander, I just think it needs to have some backing.
That's all, thank you.
That's a
Sure.
question. I'm just wondering whether circuit actually fits within the rules.
It does. I rang today.
Because the rules are that it has to be enclosing a circuit, a roadway enclosing an area.
Yes.
Yeah,
So in
so-
terms of this, does this actually enclose the area?
So it starts at Swanwick Drive, I think it was, and it went around. And the Jason who I spoke to today at the Norman Chicka board, he said circuit is the perfect word
Okay, that's
for that, exactly how that is. Because it could be circuit or it could be circus, and I didn't love the name circus.
Right. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Circle, half the circle. Half the circus, isn't it?
Yes. Maybe not.
So I will put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Churchill, Arnold, Brini, Pike, Browning, Deputy Mayor Woods, myself, and against Councillor Simons, so carried. Okay, 7.3, NRM Committee revised terms of reference. Motion please, Councillor Arnold.
Yes, I'd move that council endorses the NRM committee's revised terms of reference.
And as somebody to second, Councillor Brini, any comment? You want to?
No, if there's no question.
Okay, we'll move the motion. All those in favour? Carries. Um, 7.4, Orford Community Group, motion please.
That council approves a grant of $330 to the Orford Community Group for purchase of equipment for making beeswax wraps.
Second, Councillor Brini. Open for debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. 7.5, Councillor Arnold.
We are.
We are?
We are marching on. Could I have a motion, please?
I move that council approves a grant of $1,000 to the Spring Bay Clay Target Club towards the cost of relaying the competition tracks for handicap events.
Somebody to second that, please. Councillor Simons. Open for discussion.
I'd just like to congratulate this club. They do a tremendous job, and what they've done out there at Twomley is to be commended, and also the background information that we received with regards to this grant application.
Any further comment?
Yes, there is. It's just the wording, handicap. That's not a word, it's used. It's either disability.
No,
What is what sort of handicap is it, please?
Shooting
Where you stand on the
Right, so that's what I wanted
Plus
clarified.
track.
Thank you. That's what I wanted clarified. Thanks. Because it's strange having that word there when it's not explained.
Okay. So it's a shooting term rather than
Yeah,
a
that's
handicap.
right. I understand, but
Okay,
it's
I
not
get you.
clarified
I'm
there,
thinking
though,
less
you see.
abled, but it's not relating to less
It's a
abled.
sporting term.
I just got it.
You just got it.
I just got it. I
I
was
thought,
thinking a bit
handicap, but we
rude.
don't use handicap now, but you do in sport. I understand, so now it's clarified. Thank you.
Any further comment?
Oh, we've got a laugh
In
anyway.
favour? It's unanimous.
Oh dear. Oh, good Lord, look at it.
6. The outcome was unanimous, in support.
Thank you very much, council.
And we worked out what the word handicap meant, by the way.
Beg your pardon?
We worked out what the word handicap meant. I mean, less abled, we would know.
It doesn't.
We thought that would have been rude, okay?
No.
7.6 is Spring Bay Studio and Gallery. A motion, please. Councillor Churchill.
Move that Council approves a grant of $1,000 to the Spring Bay Studio and Gallery towards the purchase of a semi-professional NJRP 18D etching press for printmaking.
Somebody to second that motion? Councillor Simons. Comment?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I will be supporting this, but I do note that I believe there's a total of $10,400 out of a $20,000 budget that's been distributed, and as of today it'll be $8,400 or in that order. We have a period of the year to go yet, and it would be unfortunate to disappoint other groups who have just as valid a requirement as this. I think it may be worthwhile for councillors in the future at a workshop to consider whether or not we have some sort of way of making sure that the money that is allocated, A, is either adequate, or B, is spun out enough so that people who are late in the year don't get discarded simply because the funds have been expended. The fact that this is for an art gallery studio is something that you have to look at with regard to the guidelines for these grants. It does benefit the community. I'm very happy to support the arts, and considering that the total cost of the project is $4,672, of which the gallery itself is contributing $1,200, and the Orford Odeon has seen right to support it with $2,470. I think council's input of $1,000 is moderate and quite acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Churchill.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to comment that having been to the Spring Bay Studio and Gallery for the first time a few weeks ago, I saw a lot of very excited people there doing great work, and I just think these sort of community projects are really worthy of our support where we can justify our support. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wispy. I'd also like to commend the Spring Bay Studio and Gallery, for the work that they do there, but also, again, the level of information that we've received which was attached to this application.
Yes, okay. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. 8.1. Miscellaneous correspondence. Conduct and amendments fact sheet December 2018. So that would just be to note that information. Item 9, motion tracking document. Any questions or comment? No, the council. Oh, sorry, Councillor Churchill.
Sorry, I'm a bit slow down here. Just by way of comment, on the meeting dates there, this is probably because I am slow, but could we have the year put in there where you've got sort of the dates 25th of November, 23rd of February? We know that the decision number goes back to the date of the original issue, but it doesn't state clearly, certainly to the public. I mean, I can work out that was decision number 150 in 2014, but it's not that clear and it's not that difficult to.
I think that's probably not a problem at all. That was really badly worded, what I just said, but I think we could do that. So that council receives and notes the information contained within the motion tracking document. Questions without notice, item 10. Deputy Mayor Woods.
Thank you very much. I'd like if you could give us an update on the tip shop in Swansea, please.
Sure. We have a special group. We have a special little group, another special project going on. Announcement 2 this evening. And the lucky members of this group are Councillor Churchill and Browning. And they are looking at a tip shop in Swansea, and potentially a men's shed. So they haven't got a men's shed up there. So if we're going to build a tip shop, why aren't we looking at a men's shed at the same time? We donate timber, they build something because they're clever, you know. I don't do that stuff, but they do that stuff. And so that's what we're doing. We're using the resources, the people around the table that have got the passion and the knowledge, and try to get some outcomes for the community. So these two councillors have put their hand up. We're having a meeting at the TIP on the 12th of February.
That sounds very good. And
to the TIP. Yes, they're actually called a waste transfer station. We're going to the TIP on the 12th of February, okay? We're having an outing.
Yes.
We could have that plunge. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. So that's exciting. We're taking it all very seriously, even though I'm being silly at the moment, but we're taking it very seriously. And the councillors who are forming this little group will come back to council with some options and costings and get some community people together and come up with some thoughts. So I think that's really good. Councillor Browning.
Yes, through the Mayor. I just had some grey moments, I guess, because I didn't understand what notice of intention to sell land. Is that unpaid rates? Is that because of unpaid rates, or on the 27th of June, item 8.5, service of notice to be progressed by admin staff. I didn't know what that was about. It's only because I'm probably new and I don't.
Through you, Mayor, section 137 is selling land for the unpaid rates. So
Right.
I think we can actually put that as completed now and drop it off.
Okay.
So that's all been done.
And another thing I had through you, Mayor, was MPSP, which is Action Officer Codes, which there wasn't one. So I didn't know what that meant. Which is the 24th of April curbside vendor policy.
If I may, I think that would be manager. Can you tell me what the code is again?
MPSP.
Manager Planning and Special Projects, and he's now been renamed to Manager Development and Compliance.
Compliance and development.
Oh yes, one of those.
Right.
Yes,
Which
Community development's got here. Community development.
Which is Jane Wells.
Right. Okay.
So yes.
So, and I had a moment with City of Hobart, and then I see HCC, which is Hobart
That's
City
City
Council.
Council.
I did work that out, but for dummies, sorry. It takes me time. It's like,
acronyms are wonderful, Councillor.
why can't they use HCC, Hobart City Council, and says City of Hobart, and then Hobart City Council down there? Anyway, sorry. Right.
All this evening, Councillor.
Sorry.
Quit while you're in.
Mayor Wisby, just to follow up on comments, questions made by Mr. Carswell and Mr. Harrison in question time, re the Cambria airstrip. There must be somewhere documentation within council to indicate council's regulation, if we have any, or some planning detail that was that pertains to that somewhere back in the history of council to authorise it for whatever uses it is. Would that be possible to get those documents so that we have it clear in our mind where the original permission was given?
Through you, Mayor, that would be interesting. I'd have to go back to the actual archives in Hobart and go back to the Glamorgan Council records, because that's as long as it's been there, I believe.
Okay, well, through you, Mayor, I just feel that we need to, if that documentation is that old, then perhaps this needs to be brought back to council for further decisions. If that documentation cannot be found and does not exist, then I think we've got, we should be, if it is our responsibility, I'm as clear as mud here, I know, but if it is our responsibility, we should then have some sort of formal approach to this, and it should be a documented approach. And I just think that we're not going to get, I'm certainly not, I don't understand the approvals that have been given quite clearly, and I would just like to see this put through in a more formal and structured way. But if it does relate to prehistory, perhaps that is still relevant. We still need to see that, please, if that's possible.
Sure. It's not very hard. Thanks, Councillor Churchill.
I thought I'd give you an easy one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
We'll talk about that and see what we can do. I understand what you mean. Yes. Yes. Leave it with me. Us. We'll talk about that. Councillor Brenny, do you have something to add? No.
Just to add to that, Mayor Wisby, it might be good, there's probably a few other landing strips within the municipality that an update of conditions in the Act might apply to as well, so could be some benefits. It's not just the Cambria strip, perhaps.
Sure.
Yes, Mayor Wisby. There are a couple, in fact one just out of Tribunno and a few others. With regard to what Councillor Churchill was saying, we're uncertain at the moment about just exactly where that strip came from, and where the approvals were and who's responsible for it. Surely there must be some sort of controls in place at the moment by CASA, which indicate that CASA are supposed to be in control of licensing of people touch landing.
No,
they're not.
CASA only have responsibility to regulate airstrips used by planes that have a seating capacity of 30 or more.
Okay.
This is an unregulated airstrip.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, if we can find out exactly where we stand as a council, we'll be able to make decisions on it. If we don't know where we stand, we can't do anything.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Just to reiterate, if I may, CASA have said that it's the land use planning authority that has, because of what it's used for, has the right to regulate it.
Sure. It's commercial. No worries. We can look into that clearly complex matter. Any further questions without notice? No? This hasn't even been a hard meeting, but I feel like it has. Item 11 is a confidential item, so it's in closed session. So I declare the meeting closed to the public in order to discuss the General Manager's performance review for 2017-18. Under Regulation 15 Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2015 Statutory Rules 2015 number 38, the meeting will be closed to the public according to Regulation 15.2a Personnel Matters. Item 1, General Manager's Performance Review 2017-18. Thank you everyone for attending, and I'll adjourn the meeting now for a 10-minute break. Okay, we'll re-adjourn at 5 to 7, 6:55.
That's interesting.